Facing death was very real. I wasn't sure what would happen. I was afraid, but at the same time, you knew going in that might happen. And that was 1980, June of 1980, when we fled. I was fortunate enough to be a success. I was born number 8 out of 9 children, and I was 8 years old when the war ended. I did see some of the fighting, some of the destruction. I did live under the new regime for 5 years, and my dad somehow got a hand on a shortwave radio that he put in the bunker beneath our house, and we would all, my siblings and I and my dad, would crouch in there to listen to Voice of America and BBC, and that's the only free source of news we know. And at the same time, there was a man that owed him a favor. And so the man told him that I'm organizing a trip out of the country, and as a return to the favor you did me, I could send one of your kids. And my dad told me that I'll choose you to go because you're the youngest and you have the most opportunity. And I was all too happy to be sent on that trip, even though, of course, fear of the unknown. But there's a chance that I could reach the outside world and perhaps go to America. I thought, I really want to go there. I want to see what it's like to be in the most powerful and most advanced country in the world. My dad knew that South Vietnam was collapsing. It was just a matter of days, so he told my mom, and he said, we need to get out of here. But my mom would cry and say, no, we're not leaving without my brother. After the war, everything became scarce. Food, fuel, medicine, everything. She was under treatment for TB, and after that, the fall of Saigon, she didn't have access. And because of that, she died a few years later in '78. She was our main provider. And with her passing, we tried to take up farming, which was under difficult conditions because we're not trained. My dad was a military man, and my mom was a nurse. So there were a few years of drought, and I was eager to leave. We fled in the middle of the night. The boat was maybe, I think, 33 feet long. Really no room to get around. On the third day, a huge storm hit, and it was scary because the waves were bigger than the boat. I don't know how one of them didn't swap, but several times it nearly tipped over. Facing death was very real. I wasn't sure what would happen. I was afraid, but at the same time, you knew going in that might happen. After 2 weeks at sea, a ship rescued my boat with 116 people, I think, on board, including 40-some kids. And I was one of 4 children without a competent adult. I was 13 when I left. And that was 1980, June of 1980, when we fled. I was fortunate enough to be a success. I worried, yes, what might happen, or if I would see my family again. But I had hope that I would somehow make it. We were worried about pirates. We were thinking about where we are in position. The other kids, I didn't know that they were on the boat until we got on the ship and we had more room to move around. But the rest of the time there wasn't that much conversation except just praying in desperation, hoping that something would come about. A ship came upon us, and it was called the Acuna, and it was run by Food for the Hungry International. And on that ship, Bob Moffitt, my mentor and friend, was a volunteer at the time. And it was he who introduced me to my foster family in America. The ship took us to Singapore, where we were processed, and then I was on to a refugee camp in Indonesia, where I spent 5 months. I was taught English, and then flew to the United States to meet my foster family. Bob was a member of Scottsdale Bible Church, and so were my foster parents, John and Irene. And so he spoke to them about me, and afterwards they came up to him with tears in their eyes and they said, we want to sponsor this child. They lived in Paradise Valley, and they were very kind and generous and a loving family for the 2 years that I spent with them until my dad and two of my siblings escaped on another boat, and we were reunited a couple of years later. When they arrived at the airport, my sister just clung to me because she hadn't seen her little brother for 2 years, and she didn't even dream of ever reuniting again. So to meet her again was quite a very touching experience. And of course, my brother and my dad, but especially my sister. I became their translator, and fortunately, despite having been here only less than 2 years, I was nearly fluent. But it was quite an adjustment too, because up to then I had been sheltered in Paradise Valley, and I didn't know how wealthy my foster parents actually were until we moved to that apartment right next to Westwood High School, where I actually attended one semester there before we moved to the west side and then eventually to LA. We were 10 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, and my dad worked as a dishwasher and my brother as a busboy, and I was also a busboy, and every check I would give my dad to help pay the rent. And my foster parents didn't believe in public assistance, so they didn't tell us about it, and I didn't know anything about it either. We worked and paid everything ourselves, and it was hard, but I didn't mind. The joy of being reunited with your own blood family is greater than anything else. And since then, I think we mostly achieved what we set out to do. We'll never lose hope. Things will get better.